Hi, we're Emily, Lee and Hudson. We're from the UK, and after some years living abroad in Thailand and Gozo, where we got married, we wanted to be closer to nature with our own land for self-sufficiency. So we followed our dream and moved to rural Bulgaria in 2019 in a bid to become debt and stress-free and property owners. Follow us on our journey as we renovate our future home, showcase Bulgarian village life and share some useful tips as we learn along the way. We've got big plans on a tiny budget. Welcome to Our Derelict Dream. Just look at that. And listen to that. I think that probably answers most of the questions in today's Q&A video. So we had a bit of a stressful week actually, back into the real world. Very cold and wet here, and then Thursday night I got really sick during the night. I woke up Friday, I could barely walk to the bathroom. I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't even lift Hudson. I had this very strange sort of literally 24-hour virus, and that was awful. And Lee obviously had to look after Hudson so I could rest. And he went to sort of go and take him out in the car. The car wouldn't start. He's checked the car and the cam belts totally snapped. So we're totally stranded at the house. So Friday was a pretty bad day. It was raining all day long, so he couldn't take Hudson out. And Hudson's getting a little bit miserable if he's stuck indoors. He wants to be out now. He's moving. He's at that age where he just wants to explore all the time, and he gets really frustrated and whingy. So it was a really bad day. So because it's Easter in Bulgaria as well, we can't get the car into the mechanic until Tuesday because he can't buy any parts. So we've had to order a recovery vehicle to tow the car on Tuesday morning. We've got enough food to last us probably till tomorrow. So I've ordered some food online to get delivered tomorrow. So we've been a bit kind of like, oh, everything seems to have gone wrong again. But today's a good day. The sun is out. Hudson's gone for a little walk with Daddy down to the river. And talking about that, I just want to make another point about our Patreon community. Thanks so much for everyone that supports us on that channel. If anybody doesn't know what it is, it's a little kind of membership. We have, it's a monthly fee. It starts at like £1 and a month, and it's just to help support us on this channel with our time, with our equipment. A lot of the money goes towards some of the food that Lee buys to feed the stray animals, if anybody is interested in helping in that way. We also do things like plant a tree, so it's just an extra bit of support for us on this channel if you enjoy the videos and want to keep us seeing us going. So with the Patreon we try and do two sort of special behind the scenes videos a month. So if you sign up to that, even £1 a month, you get to see those. So put the link in the description below if you want to join our Patreon community. So we'll put in a couple of clips of our Patreon video this weekend so you can see what you're missing. So today's video, as we said, is going to be Q&A, but we're going to do it a bit differently to other people. We're filming separately our answers, so it's a bit like Mr. and Mrs. We're going to put the video together with both our answers after each question. And we won't know the other person's answers until it's published on YouTube. So we'll watch it for the first time, published on YouTube when you're watching it. So forgive the editing maybe a little bit because we haven't been able to watch what the other person's done. And then we'll see if there are any arguments after that or any agreements. So apologies if there's any repetition because we may have the same answers or we may have completely different takes on it. But we thought that would be a fun way to do it and share it with you. Isn't that right, mister? Boo.
Look at that view. Lovely. Just had a trim, so I can be on camera for today. So I'm chilling in the garden, got the laptop in front of me with a few questions, and yeah, let's get into it. What is Emily's online work? I'll probably let her explain that, it'd be much easier.
So I get asked this question a lot because I know a lot of people, if they're looking to do a move, are looking to find work online because jobs are hard to find in Bulgaria. So I would recommend, as a native English speaker, to look for online work. I'm very, very lucky. When I lived in Malta, I found a job at a health retreat out there. I worked for a health retreat called Amchara. They have a detox health retreat in Malta and in the UK. So I worked in their Malta retreat. I've been with the company for 6 years. I'm their bookings manager. So during the pandemic, obviously the retreats weren't open, but I was still working on the admin side, and very, very fortunate. They were incredibly supportive of me wanting to move here and allowing me to keep my job so I could work remotely. So I'm extremely lucky to have a job where I can work online. I can pretty much choose my hours. I've got to work UK hours, so I do have to work into the evenings because we're 2 hours ahead. But it's flexible around Hudson. I work with a job I love, and no, there isn't any opportunities yet if anybody's asking. But if you are looking to work online, I recommend there's some companies out there. If you can do some English speaking teaching. There are companies where you don't have to have a TEFL qualification to do, so they just require people that can converse in English. So I used to do this with some Japanese students. It's a company called I think they're called Engu now. They work in Korea and Japan and China, and they just need people. They do some training for you, but they just need people that can work through the lesson material and generally just chit chat in English. So I'd recommend reaching out to some of those types of websites if you're looking to work online.
There's another one here about the area that we chose to live in Bulgaria, and why did we choose this village. I suppose we didn't really choose this village. We saw hundreds of properties online, but we had two in mind, and this was one of them. All for various reasons. I wanted a barn space. This has a really good barn space. It actually had two barns. One fell down, unfortunately. Price was obviously very important to us, and both the properties were in our price range. But once we came to this house, it was the first one that we viewed in person. We just fell in love with the village. I mean, there's nothing here. There's no shop. There's nothing. Everything is close to us, but there's no stress here. I mean, there's no noise. The only noise that you get, occasionally a couple of chickens from next door, but it's just birds and wildlife. And as soon as I realised that cemented the fact that this was it. And we felt so fortunate that we could buy a property like this for £5,000. It was just alien to us. So yeah, that pretty much is the reason why we chose this village. But I'm so happy that we did, because travelling around the last couple of years, we like to go and get lost in the car and find new places. And there's only a couple of places, you know, maybe a handful that live up to where we are for what we want. So yeah, we really landed on our feet with that. It was yeah, a great choice.
So why this area of Bulgaria and why this village? Well, as I said at the beginning, this kind of must make this answer really obvious. I know the old pool being there isn't a great shot, is it? But we have always lived by the coast. I was born in Southend-on-Sea. That's right, Essex girl. And basically we then, you know, we've lived down in Worthing in the UK by the sea. We lived in Thailand on an island. We lived in Gozo in Malta on an island. So we've done the sea life. There are beautiful coastal parts of Bulgaria, but we kind of really missed green, missed nature. You know, Malta's lovely, beautiful, amazing beaches, etc., but it's no greenery, and you miss that. It gets a bit dry, it gets a bit arid. When we came on holiday to Bulgaria, we visited Sofia, the city. We know we don't want city life. We then came on holiday to Veliko Tarnovo and really loved the vibe there. Explored some of the villages, driving around in a rental car, and just thought, you know what, this is where it needs to be, where we need to be now for the next stage in our life. Now, nothing's to say anything is forever. If you'd have asked me 5 years ago that we'd be here, I wouldn't have ever in my life have said that that's somewhere we would be. So who knows in 5 years time where we'll be, but this is certainly our current plan. And we chose this village because really of the view of the house being 5,000 at the time, and it's kind of a no-brainer. We didn't do a lot of exploring of other places. We bought on a whim. We rushed because we wanted to get it in before Brexit, and I think we've explained that in previous videos. So that's kind of where we're at. We've obviously now got the second property to move into because we feel for Hudson it's safer, and now he's pottering about. It's really clear from this property it's not the best for little tiny children. So yeah, we still really love this area. That's why we've chosen this next property in this area. And it's the nature, it's the peace, village life, rural life, but we're not far from the city. It's a 25-minute drive. We can go to a restaurant, we can go take him to a park, and we can do lots of lovely normal things as well.
Were you always drawn to the VT area, or were there ever any other regions you considered? I don't know really. From what we saw online, VT as a city was obviously not as big as Sofia or Plovdiv or Varna. We kind of wanted to be closer to a city, but far enough away that we felt like we were in the middle of nowhere. And I feel like VT offered us that. The prices in the area also appealed to us, and being surrounded by nature. So yeah, I mean there were other regions that we considered. We'd heard good and bad things about other areas, but yeah, VT sounded perfect for what we wanted.
So as I mentioned in the last question about why this part of Bulgaria, yeah, the VT region, just really, we kind of really liked it. I like the fact that it's got an old town, you can potter about little craft shops. I like the fact it's got really nice restaurants with a really beautiful view over the river. It's small, and it's a small city, so we don't really love city life. Done all that, been there, done it. Too many people, so it's kind of quiet enough that you can feel like you're not bombarded by noise, by traffic, by people, but it's also lively enough that if you want to go out and listen to some live music or go to a restaurant, it's got all that as well. And so that's kind of why we liked Veliko Tarnovo. But to be fair, we haven't had a good look around other areas, so we know there's some other amazing cities. Our friends have also recommended places like Stara Zagora. We really look forward to visiting Plovdiv one day, although that's extremely expensive for people like us to live in. But we will get out and about and explore Bulgaria now Hudson's older, and when the car's fixed.
Someone has said here, why aren't you putting an internal staircase in the house? That's the new house, I'm assuming. Utilise an upstairs room for a bigger bathroom and have the kitchen downstairs. Really short answer to that, if I'm honest. Obviously we did consider using the whole house, but we are just going to concentrate just on that top floor. That will hopefully eventually be some sort of Airbnb rental, which we want totally separate to our living space. And it'll also be a place for family to stay when they come. So yeah, great idea, but yeah, it just doesn't really work for what we're trying to use it for.
So why no internal staircase? Well, I thought we answered that in the video about what we're doing in the house, but the future plan is to turn that apartment into an Airbnb rental. So we don't want to be living upstairs and downstairs. We want it to have its own separate entrance and be a rental one day. So yes, we could expand into the bottom floor and have a bigger living space, but that's not the idea. We're making a self-contained unit upstairs to live in initially while we do up the main house for our living, and that will be a rental. I think that's fairly straightforward. Bulgarian banks, yeah, that's a good question actually. I don't know. There are ridiculous charges. Like if you need to go and print out a statement, if you're sorting out your residency or something like that, they charge like 40 lev just to print something out, and that's crazy. That's with UniCredit. I don't actually recommend UniCredit. They've been very difficult to work with. So I think if you're going to come and set up a bank, when you're speaking with your translator or someone in your local area, they'll recommend the best banks. I don't think we charge too much in regards to sort of general transactions, so that's not a concern. It's just if you need to go in there and get something sorted out, then they seem to take a long time and seem to charge you for it. But I would probably recommend speaking to your sort of official person, maybe your agent or your translator, to sort of advise on those things. I wouldn't want to give wrong information, and we've only got the one account and we don't really use it too much. We take our money out and we live in cash.
Another one here. I've heard that you get charged to use a BG bank account and are charged again every time you make a deposit or withdrawal. Is that true? Making a deposit, I don't think we get charged. Taking money out of a cash machine, out of a cash point, I believe it's like 0.2%. So it really isn't very much, with a maximum of 2,000 lev at each transaction. I think that's each transaction, maybe it's each day. I'll double check that. But yes, you do get some weird charges. We needed to show proof of our bank account and what was in it. I'm not sure what that was for, it was some admin stuff. And they wanted to charge us 35 lev for a piece of paper. So I thought that was a little bit extreme. Also, when we bought the second property, we decided to do it all in cash. And as I said earlier, taking out 2,000 a day is your limit. So we went into the bank to try and take out the full amount, and they wanted to charge us 6%. So yeah, I didn't do that. I went each day and took out 2,000 until we had the right amount. What was the main reason to move to Bulgaria? And the second part of that question is, why not any of the other Eastern European countries? Honestly, when we were looking for rural properties, a few countries came up. Bulgaria was the main one that we were looking at, just because of our funds, you know, what we had. That wasn't the only reason that we came here. We wanted to be in a rural location, close to civilization but far enough away, and we wanted peace and tranquility and nice walks, and yeah, Bulgaria seemed to offer us that at a very affordable price. So yeah, that's why.
So why Bulgaria and not other Eastern European countries? Well, it's not like we made a decision to go to Eastern Europe. That wasn't really part of the decision. The decision was money. Lee was looking online about properties under 10k. Portugal was an option, but really was still out of our price range. So we subsequently visited Bulgaria and we have fallen in love with it. It wasn't a case of we want to live in Bulgaria. That was never the original decision. It was, let's do something that's going to better our future, because we can't continue the way we are. So really, I'm sure there's also other amazing countries in Eastern Europe with similar properties, but we particularly fell in love with this one, and as I have said before, made a quick decision. So one of the questions which was received from the Udens, who are another family in the south of Bulgaria, have their own YouTube channel as well. They were asking about Hudson, the plans for schooling. And to be honest, we don't know yet. Obviously he's only 1. The Bulgarian school system actually doesn't start until they're 7 out here. Obviously there's preschools, there's kindergartens. We don't know what we're going to do. We aren't necessarily a walk away from a school. And when the time comes that he obviously will need to be, we want him to learn Bulgarian. So we will get him into proper school from the age of 7 upwards. And it's nice actually, because I believe they sort of run till midday, which would be wonderful, because then in the afternoons we could do a bit of homeschooling. There's lots of things that we'd like to teach him. And I'm not really kind of averse to homeschooling at all, except we really would like him to obviously have more social interaction and learn the language. That would be the main reason why we would like him in a Bulgarian school. When it comes to preschool and nursery, I'd like him home as long as I can possibly manage it with work, because I didn't have a kid to put them in nursery and never see them. I absolutely love being with him, and we're teaching him a lot, we're showing him a lot. This trip to the UK showed us how sociable he is anyway, so he is not missing out on anything. We take him, we go to restaurants, we meet friends with other children, so he's not completely abandoned in the middle of nowhere, and that's I think what people are worried about. And he's a really sociable kid. He smiles at everyone, he chats to everyone, so I'm not concerned that we're raising him in a rural environment. But there will come a time that actually working is going to be difficult with looking after him. So there, I think our probably nearest nursery, we haven't actually researched it yet, but I'll probably be researching that in the next year or so when he's older. So I hope that answers your question. We don't know, but that's sort of a rough plan.
What are your plans with schooling for Hudson? That's a strange one. We get different ideas all the time. Obviously being in a country where we don't speak the language is very difficult. We obviously want him to integrate, and we want him to be able to speak the language and be a Bulgarian citizen essentially. But the schooling systems in every country, I think, my personal opinion, I'm not happy with them. I didn't get on well at school, didn't have a good time, I was bullied, I was bored, and it turned me into a bit of a terror. I don't want that for Hudson, so maybe it'll be a mixture of homeschooling or maybe like a forest school, so he can learn more about nature and stuff like that. That's what I didn't learn at school, and that's now what I'm living in. So it would have been nice to have an understanding of all of that from school. In the UK, I didn't get that. So yeah, we'll see. Don't know.
This was an interesting question. How do we hear about officialdom? I love that term. So generally, sort of local news and events we hear from neighbours. So we've got a lovely neighbour, Veselin. Hi Veselin, he lives in the next village of Dedinci, and he's lovely. He speaks English, and he generally comes down and tells us if there's something going on really local. So maybe they're all meeting in the village hall, or something's going on, and that's how we know about real local events. You've also got a lot of Facebook expat groups in the Veliko Tarnovo area. We actually aren't on Facebook anymore, but if you wanted to find out about what's going on, or if we sometimes check in on there if we want to know what's going on. And there's sort of various online event pages in the local area. In terms of news, I kind of keep away from mainstream news I check in every now and then, but it's kind of nice to get away from all that. So that's kind of where we're at. So I do look into sort of Bulgarian news and what's going on, but like with mainstream news in the UK as well, I take it with a pinch of salt. Only believe half of what I read, so it's probably the same for the Bulgarian mainstream news as well. So you might find that amusing, but that's how I choose to live my life.
Another one here. How do we keep up with local news and events without being able to speak or read Bulgarian? Short answer is I don't. I'm not a fan of the news. I'm not really a fan of media in general, apart from YouTube, obviously. But yeah, I keep myself in a little bubble, and you can do that here. You can find out what's going on, but you have to look for it. And I kind of like that. It's not shoved down my throat like it was living in the UK, you know. So yeah, if like me, you're sick of all that, just come here and forget about it all.
So lots of people are asking for advice on this channel about doing a move, for relocation. One of the questions was about why we regretted getting a shipping container when we moved from the UK to Malta. And basically we spent about £3,000 shipping all our stuff from the UK to Malta. And it was everything. It was sofas, it was white goods, it was obviously personal items, furniture. And it was great. It did what we needed to in Malta. But then to move from Malta to here, we just sold it all because we couldn't afford to ship it again. And when you're living in Europe, not necessarily on Malta because it was an island, but in Bulgaria, everything is so very cheap because you know, everything's delivered on land. You don't have to worry about things getting shipped. So white goods, appliances, they're really well priced. Furniture really well priced. You can get new products, like a bit like kind of IKEA style. There is an IKEA in Sofia, but there's another sister company called Jysk, JYSK, and they're in most of the cities here, and you can get sort of modern Scandinavian type furniture if that's your thing. The only thing that isn't really here is sort of decent second hand, you know, vintage pieces, if that's the kind of stuff you're into. So if there's some really, if you've got items that you really treasure and want to keep forever, I can understand you wanting to ship things. If you're looking at just kitting something out with anything, then just do not spend the money shipping it over, because you can buy everything really quite cheaply. And what a lot of people tend to do is maybe even buy a cheap van and drive over all of your personal items, because it's certainly going to save you a lot of money. So we regret spending all that money shipping things that we ended up basically just selling anyway, and came here with suitcases. And to follow on about what would you recommend bringing with you, again, just anything that's personal to you, because everything can be bought. You know, tools, we've talked before about how cheap the DIY stores are, how cheap the furniture stores are. There's some really cheap clothing stores as well. So, you know, if you don't have to bring your whole wardrobe, don't bring your whole wardrobe. Start again. It feels quite refreshing having a good clean out and starting afresh, doesn't it? But bring your photo albums.
This one here is sort of talking a little bit about Malta, where we lived prior. It says, why did you regret shipping items from the UK, which we did, to Malta, not here to Bulgaria? And what would you recommend to bring? What would I recommend to bring? I mean, as much as you can. We came here on a plane. We didn't drive, didn't have a big van or anything. We had 6 suitcases. 2 of them were tools. The rest was clothes and, you know, odd bits. So yeah, the more you can bring, the less you got to purchase. And obviously, if you're doing a renovation and you've already got tools, bring them with you. But why did we regret shipping items from the UK? Expense. It was, forgive me if I'm wrong, I think it was about £3,500, and that was a lot of money to us at the time, and still a lot of money to us, a lot of money to most people. You know, with that amount of money, a couple of years ago, you could have bought a house here. So that kind of puts it into perspective. Yeah, hope that answers the question.
we were waiting for someone to comment on Lee's pants. Lee is still bought underwear by his mother, Nanny, and doesn't buy his own. Mummy still buys them for him. And no, but she actually, it's a really great brand. They're like made from bamboo and they're really comfortable, and he doesn't sweat and all those horrible things. And I'll let him talk to you about them. Maybe we'll get sponsored. But no, he's got enough pairs for a week and a half, and I wash them, and he does wear one a day. He is clean, I promise you, because I have to do all the washing.
God, it's getting hot. Which actually brings me on to this one. In recent videos, it looks like Lee only has one pair of pants. That's not true. I have about 10 pairs of the same brand. Yeah, when it gets hot, guys, you'll know what I mean. When you're renovating and it's 40 degrees, you get a bit sweaty, a bit chafy. And these boxers that I've got now are fantastic. They're made out of bamboo. Really unusual, but yeah, they're zero chafing, zero sweat. So hate to be a bit graphic, but if you're going to be working out in the heat, look into these boxers. They're amazing. Is there anything you miss from the UK, and would you ever go back? There's a few things. I like stuffing mix for a roast dinner. Can't seem to find that here, so I do miss that. We get it sent over. Mum sends us about 10 packets at a time. Same with Bisto gravy. Can't find that here. Anything else I miss though? I mean, obviously people. That's the main thing, but with things like our YouTube videos, and we use Skype and WhatsApp calls. Yeah, we're in touch with everyone. It's great. The second part of the question, would you ever go back? No. This is blissful. This is great to have the life that we have here, with the land that we have, being out in the middle of nowhere. We need £1 million, and we ain't got that. So maybe if I won the lottery, I would consider it. But without a lottery win, I think we'll stay here.
So this question's really easy to answer now. I've just spent 2.5 weeks in the UK. The obvious one is family. The hardest thing is, especially when you have a little person, you know, we've lived abroad away from family for a long time, and we're kind of used to that, and we see them regularly enough, and it, you know, regularly enough that we miss them tremendously. But as adults, you can get by day to day. What's really obvious is when you've got a little person in your life, is not just that they're missing out on him, but he's missing out on them. So really, really important that we're going to have now lots of pictures up of everybody, and we're going to really try and do more regular visits now the pandemic is making sort of travel a lot easier. And it's obviously the main thing that we miss. And yeah, obvious, Marmite, you're totally right, but we've got stacks of it. We've got family that bring it out to us, that's no problem. For me, the big thing is fish and chips. I think I had about 2 or 3 fish and chip suppers when we were back. Cream teas, all the obvious stuff, you know, gravy, Paxo stuffing. We get family send it all, so nothing like that is too much of a bother. But of course the big thing is family. And were we to ever go back? Financially impossible. My wage isn't enough to necessarily cover rent out there, and it's when we lived in the UK, you know, work was hard to find for Lee. He really wants to establish his own thing, which I think we could do out here much easier. So I think the answer is no. Unless there's a lottery ring and someone can buy us a house, then maybe we'll spend half the year out there and half the year out here.